Hi, I'm Monique,
And I'm Sandra.
and we're the Ballet Sisters. We've been watching Prix de Lausanne the last few days, all the coaching and the classes, and we wanted to share what we've learned and what we've seen in the last few days.
So on day one, they did an interview with the president of the jury, and they asked him, what is the jury looking for? What do they see for, like, what is the potential they're looking for? So I'm just going to go quickly through those. Technique, of course, as a ballet dancer, technique is huge. And so that was the first thing he said. The second one was he used the word attitude, but then he changed kind of he added to that and said they want to see a fire in your eye, like a want, a fire in your eye, your attitude. And then he said, especially during the classes, they were looking for instinct. Are you clever? Are you smart? That kind of thing. So, are you able to do it on the left side as well as you are on the right? Energy, of course, was a big one. And then he said uniqueness. What makes the watchers, such as us, draws our attention? What makes you unique compared to the other dancers that are in the room with you? So I thought all those were really good. Some of that is a little different than what you would just look for in a normal competition.
We split up the classes. We're both working during the daytime still as usual, so we can't just give our whole lives to Prix de Lausanne as much as we already are this week. We each watched pretty much some of the classical, some of the contemporary classes, and we're going to go through kind of each group, the girls A, girls B, boys B, and just talk a little bit about what we saw, what we're excited about.
I watched the classical ballet class for girls A, which is the 15 and 16-year-olds, and the youngest one has just turned 15, and the oldest is almost 17. So they kind of range in there. The girls A group has 23 dancers in it. Uh, the first note that I wrote down was they're so beautiful. So there are some gorgeous little dancers that are so professional already at that age group. They're all fantastic, and I found some that I really liked. Now, my preferences may be different than the jurors' preferences, or your preferences, or Monique's preferences. So, we all have different things that are important to us. Me coming from a teacher's background, a ballet teacher's background, might be different than maybe Monique's background, where she did a lot of contemporary dance, so she has more of an expertise there. We all have different ways of looking at it. So we're going to highlight some of the dancers that we each individually really enjoyed and are looking forward to watching them do their performances. But by all means, they're all amazing. I guess we'll start with the very first dancer, which is number 101. She's the youngest. She is just 15. Her name is Chloe Helametz, and I apologize if I pronounce any names wrong. She's from the United States, and my notes on her was she's the baby of the group in that she's the youngest, but she's very professional in the way she carries herself. She is an extremely strong ballet dancer for 15 years old. She's talented. She looks great. She holds her body beautifully. And she's very pretty. She is a smiler.
I saw her coaching too, and she was really open to the feedback and really good at like applying it in that moment. We're talking about how the jury head was talking about like smart and quick. That's a huge part of it, is taking that feedback and applying it like right away.
Some other dancers that, there's all kinds of different reasons we notice them. So, number 111, which is Angelina Tan, she is from the United States as well. She has a beautiful face, and the cameraman loved her. She got a lot of camera time at the bar. It was quite funny, but she had a gorgeous bodysuit on. She was on the side. So yeah, but she is a beautiful dancer. There's some dancers that I just liked that I don't even know what it was about them that I enjoyed so much. To give you an idea of course, when they're amazing jumpers, that always attracts me. Um, when they're the last one, well, they're the first one to hit the air, but the last one to hit the ground.
Yes, yes. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it. Yeah.
So there's a few of those that were fantastic. Number 108, Eve Noelle Bollinger. She is Swiss, so she's at home. She's in Switzerland for this competition. And I noticed she's doing Paquita, so I'm excited for her to do her solo performance. But she's tall, she has beautiful long legs, and she knows how to use them.
That was one thing I noted when I watched just a little snippet of the Girls A classical class. And I was like, what are those legs? Like, they just go on forever. It's like they're three-quarters legs. I think it's partly because they're smaller, they're, tinier kind of thing as human beings. And their long legs just seem to go on forever. So, yeah, amazing lines in that group.
And then just a couple more within the girls A. It would be a crime to not recognize our one Canadian dancer, as Monique and I are Canadians. We're very proud of her. Her name, and again, if I pronounce it wrong, I apologize, is One Hirano. She is Canadian. She's independent, meaning she's not here representing a specific school, but she has beautiful long legs, amazing feet at the end of those legs, and very professional. I'm quite proud that she's Canadian. And then 122, which was Zeal On. She's from South Korea. What I liked about her, and you could even see it, what I loved about her is you can even see it in her profile picture. Her neck is miles long, and her poise is just because of that long neck. And, oh, beautiful.
One thing I did watch of the girls A was some of their coaching today. So that's when they'll do their piece, and then there's a teacher literally on stage, which I thought was pretty impressive. That the dancers were doing their piece with like a teacher right there on stage with them. The teacher that's doing the coaching, her name is Monique, which is my name, which is awesome. She's amazing because she can find a dancer who like you don't even know what notes you would give them, right? Because they're just so amazing. But then she finds things to give them notes on, and that's very ballet. It's like there's always something to work on, even for the most perfect dancer. So, really amazing notes that she gave people. The dancer that really stood out to me in the coaching was 102 Hano Hamasaki from Japan, it's funny. One thing that was interesting about it is that she didn't really jump out at me during the class. Like, I'm sure she was amazing and lovely, but she didn't jump out at me right away in the class. But then when she did her variation, I was like, oh, I remember you. I remember watching a variation of hers when I was like investigating some of the dancers beforehand. And I'm going to give her the "and now the competition begins" award because when she went on stage and did her variation, there was like a moment where you can see all these people in the wings looking on, and it just has that feeling of like, oh shoot, this has begun, 102, here we go, kind of thing. She was just stellar. It was the lightness of her. What did I write? Yeah, she had such a light, like, open porta bra with such a strong, controlled dancer kind of thing. Like, it was that airiness of her upper body and her hands and everything, and then this like ultimate control in her lower body. I watched more of the classical girls B group, which is the older group. Kind of the thesis that I wrote at the end of watching their first class was, again, it's the same teacher, Elizabeth Platel. She's from the Paris Opera Ballet. To me, kind of like the thing that she is really looking for in her exercises is speedy legs with a light upper body. That to me is what like stood out too, is finding fifth in those quick little petit allegro moments, but also having that lightness of your upper body. It's about placement, really, too. Like, it's not just about the speediness and the strength that you have. It's, can you get to that fifth? Can you get to that releve that needs to be held and stuff like that? So, yeah, speedy legs, but also perfect placement is so needed, and really like distinguishes people from others. It catches your eye. when you're watching a group. The age range with these girls was 17 to 18. They're actually in order of age. So the youngest, like 101, is the youngest in the whole group. And you can kind of see sometimes more so in the center because they'll do groups. So they'll do groups of like 3, 4. So you really get to see each individual dancer a little bit more. And sometimes towards the end groups, that's when you get the older kids. So you will see a difference in like the point work and how strong it is, those placements at the end of turns or jumps, and just a little bit more confidence, I think, in the movement.
I noticed
Yeah.
too in this group, the older group, that there isn't as much of a difference from the youngest to the oldest compared to the
Yes,
younger group.
yes. I would agree with that too. I think that we were talking how like 17 and 18, you're like about to be a company member. You're not necessarily continuing on with schooling. So you've pretty much done your schooling in a way. So it's really that like extra level of performance quality and stuff like that that they're really, that creates a uniqueness for those dancers, I find, in the girls B. One dancer, I think the first dancer that really kind of stood out to me was Anna. She's from Italy. She's number 309. She had so much like core kind of control and stuff just at bar exercises. And then seeing that as things got speedier, realizing that like she could get that perfect placement because she had that control in her core. She wasn't dealing with her ribs being all over the place. And you could really see the difference in the class. Anna, rib placement, amazing. Yeah. Such a hard thing when you're moving a lot. So yeah. Another one that stood out ironically is 310, which is right after her. Tatiana Chen, she's from the US. And she just has like a little bit of a different feel. We were talking about that earlier, that sometimes you can't even pinpoint what it is. She has crazy strong like control, and again, she was another ribs controlled person. She has beautiful lines. Another dancer that really stood out to me was Yunjin Liu. She's from People's Republic of China. And to me, she really stood out with that feeling of such an amazing, like ethereal kind of upper body. Um, Kind of a quiet presence in a way, like not as maybe kind of in your face, flashy, whatever, as other dancers. But I think I'm really excited to see her variation and see just kind of how she like attacks it in her own unique way comparatively.
I really enjoyed her as well. I thought she really stood out for me. So for both of us to have really noticed
Yeah.
her, she's got a lot going for her.
Another thing that stood out to me with her is that feeling we had talked about where it's just easy. Like it just doesn't look like a lot of effort, kind of, and it makes me feel easy and like just, comfortable watching her and stuff. So, yeah, she gives that kind of quality to the audience that's watching her, which is amazing. Some of the combinations that I really loved, there was a seesaw combination that had a lot of change of direction. And when you jump a seesaw and you're going in the wrong direction, I've done it many a time. Because it's a very directional jump, right? And being able to figure out all those different angles is amazing. So good job for all of them doing that exercise. Another one, and I kind of noticed this in the men's class too, is that first adage in center, or even like a slower tendu or fondue exercise in the center, is like the first wobble test to me, like, because like the bar, and there's even people I noticed that were really strong at the bar, and then that first exercise without the bar that was a little slower was like, ooh, this is changes the game really.
I watched the younger boys A, do their classical ballet class. Again, some fantastic young dancers. And the male teacher for the men's classes is Yoel. He is Cuban, but he's now teaching in Norway, and really loved his presence and the way he taught his classes. There is a uniqueness to the boys or men's classes. There are different things taught. There's different emphasis on maybe some different exercises, different ways of moving your body. So, of course, I've never learned how to do a lot of what they're doing, but it's really entertaining to watch. And the strength that's required to be a male ballet dancer is phenomenal, and a lot of them already have it at such a young age. To start with, I'm going to again talk about the youngest one. The youngest ones really impressed me. So number 201, and I pronounce it Ita, Eita, Akita. He is just 15 years and 1 month, and he's from Japan. He caught my eye right away. He's very little compared to a lot of the boys in his group, but he's confident. Don't see any immaturity. You don't see any lack of confidence. And he's smiling. He's happy to be there. And I love that about him.
I noticed 201 a little bit later on in the class that I watched. I had written down exacting placement and good use of plie. And then they did like a longer variation, kind of to end class with some jumps, turns, etc. And I wrote down that he killed it. His tours and his turns were just like on it. So he really stood out in that variation that they did towards the end of class.
I have to say, favorite is a strong word, but the one I'm really watching is 205. His name is Yuhi Fukuma from Japan. He has such presence. His musicality is so on point that he never was off the music. He's not afraid to be front and center, and I loved that. He's one of the younger boys, but I'm telling you, when they came into the center, he was the first one, right in the middle, right up front. He's not afraid to be seen. He loves to show his technique and his talent. He has a fantastic upper body in that he holds himself very strongly. So I'm excited to watch him do La Fille Malgarde is his solo. So we'll see how that goes for him. 210, Marcus Santos from Brazil.
Yes.
Again, caught my eye. He is so strong, and he is a risk taker. And going back to what we were talking about, what the jurors were looking for, he's a risk taker. He gives it everything every time he does something. I wrote that down. I said he goes for it every time. He pushes the envelope every time. 5 pirouettes while everyone else was doing 3. Huge to the ceiling jumps. That's what I loved about him. And again, I'm excited to see him do his solo. 214, I really enjoyed. He's the tallest by far, I think. Very tall. This guy could not stop smiling. Every time he was on camera, he was smiling, which tells you he was smiling all the time. Strong legs. For being tall, he has complete control of his body, which you don't always when you're tall and have mile long legs. He finishes everything beautifully. He's the last one to finish with the music, and he has such a presence in the room. It's hard not to watch him. And so that's 214. Yoon Jae Park from South Korea.
He stood out to me too. I have notes about him
Yeah.
too. Yeah. He just, like, it's crazy. He's got crazy legs, legs for days kind of thing for how old he is and stuff, but also crazy control. Like coming out of a turn, him and also 213, who's very different body type, but they were very like on their turns together a few times where like they ending their turn in retire. Like, who wants to end in 5th? Why not just keep holding your retire forever and ever? So yeah, they were amazing doing that.
So yeah, there's a lot of really amazing young male dancers. There are 17 boys in the boys A, and some very strong contenders for some amazing awards and scholarships.
The classical boys B class, so the older boys, again, something that I noted down right at the beginning after just watching the first few exercises, the uniqueness of like a men's class is that there is so much like emphasis on balance on flat and balance on demi point. And of course there is in the female class too, but I just felt like there was like a different kind of urgency to get people like on their balance and on their leg right from the beginning of bar. It was just interesting to kind of see the distinguishing things. A few of the dancers that really stood out to me, we were just saying 425, Nikita, he's from Serbia. He's the oldest boy in the group. There's 25 older boys. I was saying that he was a powerhouse and that he was just very exacting. And that was something that I really found with the kind of unique aspect of male ballet dancing, is that somehow you have to have this like perfect exacting control and also take a huge risk. And if you're just controlled and exacting, you're not going to be that like amazing, stunning, whatever. Like you need to be able to take that risk, those moments of risk, and somehow kind of marry that together, all that control, so that you can feel it feels risky, but then the landing feels safe and calm.
If you think about some of the most amazing male ballet dancers in history, Barishnikov, Nureyev, all of them, that's the combination.
I gave the last group of boys in one of the turn combinations, I gave them the Taking It Up a Notch award because there was a lot of hopping and a lot of kind of figuring out the exercise still in the groups that had come before them. And then these 5 or 6 boys came across the room together and they were just like hitting it, hitting it, hitting it. And it was, you could feel the jury just like, woo, like, have a little moment after they finished that exercise. It was amazing. One of the other dancers that I made a note of was 403, which is Hamish. He's from New Zealand. And I noted on time and in fifth. And so to me, that was my note, on time and in fifth. He's like getting in just under the wire kind of thing. Especially, they really kind of were heavy on the petit allegro and allegro in the men's classes to really show that off to the jury.
The one that stood out for me, I completely agree with the ones that you have highlighted. 420, Rito Nishiki from Japan. Oh, he's doing the Nutcracker Prince, so that'll be interesting. I'm glad. Okay. So, anyways, what I wrote down beside his name was relaxed. Oh, and then I wrote eek exclamation mark. He is so stable. Like he's so strong, but like he's rooted into the ground. He's relaxed. He looks like he's not um concerned. There's an ease to watching him dance, and that's what I enjoyed about 420.
I watched some of the coaching for the classical boys B group, and one of the dancers I saw was 410 Xavier. He's from Australia. And again, he stood out in class a little bit, but seeing him do his actual variation, which is Don Quixote, which is a piece that is done a lot at this competition, but just in general too. It's a piece we all kind of know as ballet watchers, dancers, etc. And it was, I think, one of the first times I've really watched it and seen something unique kind of in it. So yeah, he was very exacting.
He brought something different to it than the millions of others you've seen do it.
And yet, again, still the coach had stuff to tell him, stuff to exact, stuff to perfect and stuff. And he received the feedback really well. And it was a great coaching session in that sense that, the dancer was receptive and the teacher had amazing kind of perfecting little things to add to it. The contemporary classes were taught by Sarawani. One of the first exercises they did in the center during this class, the just tendu and plie exercise, I was like all of a sudden transported back to the late 90s, York University in Toronto, just in a modern class. And it made me realize we talk a lot about ballet never changing, but there's some aspects of contemporary and modern dance that just never change. Like I probably did that exact exercise 30 years ago. She did a good job of doing like kind of a really general modern contemporary class in the sense that it wasn't necessarily like when I went to York, we did a lot of, we had a whole year of Graham technique, we had a whole year of Limon technique. So we had very distinctive different techniques. This felt like more of a general class, but
Yeah.
it was a really good class in that feeling of like getting off your center and like fall and release and things like that, kind of the real elements to me of modern and contemporary dance. One thing I noticed, especially, and this is something I deal with because I'm a small dancer too, I'm a 5'2" dancer, is that there was these, like really big stretching movements they were doing. And ooh, if you're a small dancer, you got to stretch till there's no tomorrow because to feel that line and that extension and stuff like that, you just need like more and more and more. And I kind of noted that what you feel is extreme is not enough. And this was, a note. I was always the dancer that kind of held back a little bit, but you can really see the difference in the dancers sometimes, the ones that are willing and ready and able to go off that center point and take those risks and create those long lines and that suspension and stuff like that. um, it really distinguishes them in those specific classes. I watched a bit of the contemporary coaching. Sandra did too.
Yeah.
And one thing that really kind of jumped out at me, one of the choreographers talked about just going home and listening and listening and listening and listening to the music. Because they're all very unique pieces. Some of them are slower, some of them are crazy fast. But the musicality in the pieces is so integral to the performance of it. And she really stressed that. And I can imagine there's a lot of kids out there right now in La Salle, Switzerland, with their headphones in listening to their contemporary music again and again, because you need to know it forwards, backwards, upside down. That music needs to live within your body when you're performing it.
For sure. And that's a big part of contemporary dance is your interpretation of the music, of the movement. Uh, so yeah, it's almost more, even more integral, really. And the words, if there's words to the music, and really knowing what you're trying to convey to your audience.
We're really excited. We've watched all these amazing classes the last few days. There's a bit of a transition kind of at this point in the week. They're starting to focus more on the coaching tomorrow, and then there's selections on Friday and the final big performance and awards on Saturday. So we're going to be watching a lot of the coaching in the next few days.
Thanks for joining us through our little video here about all the classes. If any of you watched classes, please comment on below if you agree with something we said. If there's a dancer we didn't mention that you feel is fantastic and should be one to watch, yeah, give us some feedback and what you feel, what you're looking for and who you're rooting for. Come along with your ballet sisters and we'll discuss the selections and who the finalists were, and of course the ultimate winner.
Yes, exciting.
See you then.